Well, hello there. Welcome back to Neal Talk. I want to talk with you a little bit today about what uh, what is algorithm and how it affects what we do and how we are presented to the world. To me, and I think it's an individual thing because for the most part, unless it's something that you do or you have a niche that no one has have or is having that you can offer folk in the world that they can appreciate you and look at it and think this person is so unique. What they're saying is so unique and no one else is saying it or doing it. And that is how much is contributing to the world and making things so much better. Well, I wouldn't say that most folks have a niche per se, other than maybe a science teacher or a computer programmer or something like that. But for the most part, most of the people that are on YouTube or different platforms such as that, we could say have a niche because we associate niche with income, so to speak. But most of the people that you see or hear on YouTube or a podcast or something, either they're talking about just current events and things that happen in their opinion about it, or they're talking about things that if you did a little bit of research, most folk could talk about it or could elaborate on it. And when I think of something like that, I think of, like, for instance, back in the day when I did things that it was a job. I looked at it, no one else is doing it. So I thank the Lord I have this opportunity to do it. And I applied, and for whatever reason, a lot of times you didn't know the reason or don't know the reason. But I'm happy and blessed that I got the position. And one of those things that I say that I did that certainly I could be much better off from a financial standpoint than I am now is I was one of the first people in North Texas. And to me, it was, that was, what I did was I had been working for the U.S. government as a diplomat overseas. So I had a little bit of money. And then I was wanted to come back to the States and stay here in the States. I didn't want to go overseas or anything like that. So my wife at the time talked me into leaving the position that I had for the government. And I moved back to Texas. The position that I got was started working, I guess you would call it working at a Radio Shack. And that's a long time ago because they have Radio Shacks nowadays. Radio Shack, I guess you would say, it was something like a small Best Buy, perhaps, for those that don't know. So I bought a Radio Shack franchise. But with that, it was in 1994, I believe. I was approached by Southwestern Bell, which is AT&T. They switched over, became AT&T. They approached me about offering cell phones at my Radio Shack. And they told me that I could be the main distributor or the person for all of North Texas, everything in above between McKinney and the Oklahoma line. Well, I didn't know any better, and I said, okay, I'll do it. And I did that for a while, but finally I sold that business. And now I look back and think that was a niche. It wasn't a niche to me, and had I stuck to it, it probably would have been more of a profitable thing than I had imagined. So I look at this YouTube and social media is sort of the same in the sense that most things that you hear about the YouTube or social media, to generate a good following or a good business plan, you need to, for the main part, be consistent about it. And with that consistency, I've heard people say, well, I chose to do a video every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 7 a.m. Well, the thing that I believe that we should not do is make that commitment and then not follow through, because if that happens, you perhaps get discouraged about it and you say, well, I did it for 2 weeks or 3 weeks and I fell off and I wasn't monetized and I didn't get a lot of views, so it wasn't successful. So you stop doing it. And then you thought about it and you say, I'm going to do it again. And you did it and you stopped. And you say, well, I didn't have a niche, and so I couldn't think of stuff to say. Well, for me, I think that it's important just to share your everyday life. And because that is something that you control, that you have good feelings about, that you know about. So share your experiences with someone, because you'll be amazed at how much you can help someone. Because so often we just don't believe that what we have is something that others might be interested in or might want to hear. But for the most part, when it comes to algorithm, especially from a retired person's standpoint, and especially if you are 65 or older, you do have something to contribute. You have knowledge, you have life experiences. And with that, I think that we should be able to just share that, and that be our niche. And I do recommend that we make every effort to be consistent with what we're doing. But if we don't make a deadline or a time frame, that we don't think back in the old days how we did it. I'm going to beat myself. Oh, I'm the type that if I say it, I'm going to do it. Just keep in mind and know within yourself, you had every intentions of following through. But if things happen, they happen. But the algorithm, I think, is they want you to be consistent, but they want you to stay true to yourself. Understand that mistakes happen or delays happen in life. If you make a mistake, go back and change it. You have the time. And I think that as we look at how what we're saying can affect others, I think it does a positive thing. It doesn't do it in a negative way in most cases. Because people want to be able to understand where they came from or where you came from, what your experience has been. How can that help them? And not so much of just trying to get so many great skills. Just be content with the skill of life. So that type of algorithm, I think, is such that as long as we are expressing life and what it means and where we come from, how we can hopefully better the next generation, that we share that. So that's what I'm doing when I am talking now. I try to make sure that I share my experiences with the algorithm and make it plain and simple. I will tell you, how life is, what it used to be. And that way, I think that the algorithm is such that the computer generated, it will at some point focus in on what you're saying, and that focus will be able to just help others in a special way. I understand there's hundreds of millions of people in this world, in the United States, and billions in this world. But if you can just reach a few with your experiences, with your knowledge, at some point the algorithm will pick something that you set up and you share it, and those that are hearing it will appreciate what you're talking about. I ask that you share this video and that you give us a thumbs up as we're working towards just showing our experiences, or talking about our experiences and where we have been and where we're going, what we're planning on doing. And with that, I'd like you to come back and just be one of our subscribers. And thank you for tuning in today to Neal Talk. And I look forward to talking with you again. Thank you very much.